In 2003, a speedrunner named CALFoolio accomplished something incredible. He completed a run-through of Metroid Prime in 1 hour and 43 minutes, shaving nearly 11 minutes off of the previous best time. This was a world record speedrun. Back then, the only way to verify that a run was legit was to send in a physical copy of your recording for review and authentication. CALFoolio did this using a VCR to record his run, and then sent the VHS tape off to Texas in the mail. There was only one problem. That tape would never arrive, and his world record would never be recorded. This is the story of speedrunning. To understand the history of where speedrunning comes from, look no further than the game that needs no introduction. Super Mario Bros. Revolutionized the gaming industry in 1985, and in the process helped to create speedrunning. And it all starts right here. Well, technically, I suppose it all starts here. The addition of this timer had a huge impact on how you played the game. The more time you have left when you complete the level gives you a higher score. But there's more to it than just that. You can move Mario both left and right, but once your screen has scrolled to the right, it will no longer scroll to the left. This design choice discourages exploration and encourages the player to finish the level as fast as possible. If you take too long and your timer gets too low, this music will play. This is incredibly nerve-wracking, yet hyper-effective for getting the player to get going. But it goes even further than that. If your timer hits 0, Mario just dies. This is a recipe guaranteed to make gamers go as fast as possible. Games after Super Mario Bros. Also started to implement timers. Castlevania had a similar timer that ticked down as you played, and the original Sonic the Hedgehog game had a stopwatch that tracked how long you had been playing the level. We started to compare and compete with our friends to see who could beat levels and games the fastest. The first half of speedrunning was born. Games were being designed in order to be completed as fast as possible, but it wasn't until 1993 that another game came out that gave birth to the other half of speedrunning, the community. That game was Doom. It's difficult to explain just exactly how massive Doom's impact was in the entire gaming industry. It essentially paved the way for 3 entirely separate categories of gaming: first-person shooters, the modding community, and the speedrunning community. The reason was simple. It was possible to record your runs within the Doom software. These recorded runs were called demos and were extremely small in their file size, so they were easy to share amongst friends. Soon, websites started popping up dedicated to hosting the best Doom demos. However, not too long after that, it became more than just Doom demos getting published. Gamers would digitize their playthroughs of games and post them online for others to watch. This is when speedrunning really exploded in popularity and took off. Speedrunners started sharing secrets and strategies with each other, trying to help one another get faster and faster runs. They began optimizing routes, sharing tips and tricks, and developing techniques that would form the 3 pillars of speedrunning: routing, practice, and actual attempts. Routing is a research phase where you calculate the most optimal route to get through the game. Practice consists of playing difficult portions of the game over and over and over again in order to get the inputs down perfectly. Finally, actual speedrun attempts. This is the portion that most people watch on Twitch, and it's always fun to see runners get their personal best, or, if they're fortunate enough, a world record. From here on out, pretty much every game was a target for speedrunning. Super Mario 64 is the most popular game for speedrunning of all time. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is also massively popular. These games helped shape the landscape of speedrunning and ushered this category of gaming from obscurity into popularity. Soon, massive week-long speedrunning marathon events began happening multiple times a year. GDQ, or Games Done Quick, and AGDQ, Awesome Games Done Quick, are the most popular and have raised millions of dollars for charity, all while celebrating runners taking a crack at speedrunning their favorite games in front of an audience. The community grew so strong and passionate that anytime an unknown skip or glitch was thought possible in a game, someone would post it to a bounty board. If you were the gamer who could figure out how to reliably replicate this skip, you could earn a cash reward. One of the most famous skips that got posted to these bounty boards was the Super Mario 64 Upwarp. There was a speedrunner named Dota Teabag who was doing a run of Super Mario 64. As he was attempting to collect red coins in Tick-Tock Clock, Mario all of a sudden does an upwarp to the top of the room. Strange. The only problem was that it was soon found out that this skip was in fact impossible to replicate. The reason why is almost unbelievable. What had happened was a phenomenon called a single event upset. This is where cosmic particles collide with atoms in the atmosphere and rain down showers of ionized particles. These charged particles can then collide with electronics, affecting things like microprocessors, semiconductor memory, or even power transistors. Essentially, the theory is that one of these charged ions collided with Dota Teabag's Super Mario 64 game cartridge and flipped a bit, switching the 1 to a 0. This transcoded the first byte of Mario's position data from C5 to C4, causing him to instantly warp to the top of Tick-Tock Clock. It's hard to describe how rare these single event upsets are. What you are watching is one of the most extraordinary things to have ever happened in a video game ever. The odds of this happening are quite literally astronomical. We know that this is most likely the work of a cosmic ray because the man who set up the $1,000 bounty for figuring out this glitch is the one who eventually came to this realization. He was using TAS, or a tool-assisted speedrun, to duplicate the exact settings of Dota Teabag's run as best he could. Tool-assisted speedruns allow gamers to break open games and play through them frame by frame. This lets you achieve frame-perfect inputs and gives you access to all sorts of data. Penandcoic 2012 is the one who posted the bounty, but also updated everyone when he changed Mario's position data from C5 to C4, it mimicked the upwarp perfectly. This positional change could be achieved by flipping a 1 to a 0 in the game's binary code, which a charged ion particle could achieve if it hit the cartridge in the exact right spot. But cosmic intervention isn't the only way that people find new skips and glitches in games. I remember when a streamer named Boba was doing a live stream of Metal Gear Solid, a game that's been out since 1998, and when she was playing through the Comms Tower A section, she received damage which knocked her back and phased Solid Snake through the door labeled 6. The game loaded her into the next area, and when speedrunners found out about it, they frantically began to go to work testing the exact same parameters, seeing if this glitch was both repeatable and practical. It turns out it was. Within 16 hours, speedrunners had tested and checked the new technique and were able to consistently and reliably shave 2.5 minutes off of the game's total runtime. The Boba skip was born, and new world records began pouring in. But what about when games aren't entirely predictable? Let's talk about the bane of some speedrunners, RNG, random number generation. This is the beast that can throw a wrench in the best laid plans. In certain games, items, enemies, encounters, or obstacles can all be randomized as to where or when you get them. This destroys gamers' abilities to route the most optimal course in order to save time. You are now at the mercy of the luck of the draw. Randomization can be the difference between a world record and the destruction of your entire run. I think back to one of my favorite speedrunners, ya boy Clint Stevens. He speedran The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for years. He held the second place world record for the 100% category for a while, and he even pioneered the HES, the Hyper Endless Super Slide. So he is a very capable speedrunner, but there was this section of the game that was the absolute bane of his existence. This guy, Dampe. If you don't know about Dampe, you have to pay him some rupees to dig a hole in the graveyard for you. This is how you get a piece of heart needed to fully complete the game, but the item that Dampe digs up is randomized, so you could have the most killer run ever and then get to Dampe and have to dig 12 holes before he finally got you your piece of heart, burning minutes off of your run. This alone killed many of Clint's runs. After years of running Ocarina of Time, he began to get burned out, and so he switched games and began running Super Mario 64. He mostly runs the 120-star category nowadays, and even though people still ask him to from time to time, he refuses to go back to The Legend of Zelda. I can sympathize with Clint on this. On the one hand, after spending years of your life developing the craft and honing your skills, that love for the game is just eroded by the fact that you have to work and grind runs. Any enjoyment of the story or content is slowly annihilated by speedrunning, and that's what I find so fascinating. Even though Clint no longer runs Ocarina of Time, he still cares very deeply about the game. He has stated that he wants his contributions to be remembered, even though his completion time is no longer in second place, and he isn't actively finding new ways to run the game faster. He wants all that he's done for the game to mean something. And that is a very difficult thing to ask, especially in a community like speedrunning. Things are continually evolving in this space. Records are forged and broken. Everyone is constantly trying to improve. It's up to us to remember all of the contributions to these games that we love by the runners who came before us. And I hope that this video is some small contribution towards that memory. So, in bringing things full circle, whatever happened to CALFoolio's world record speedrun of Metroid Prime? Why was it never delivered? Well, the UPS truck that he shipped his VHS with ended up driving into a river. Many of the packages on board were destroyed, including his world record. Not to worry though, because a few months later, CALFoolio once again achieved the world record, and this time it was verified. Of course, that record would only stand for a few weeks before being beaten by another speedrunner. But in a spirit of optimism and goodwill, CALFoolio was cheerful that his time had been beaten. He was happy that these runners had developed newer, more optimal skips and strategies. And that, at its core, is the story of speedrunning. The contributions that runners of the past have made that helped pave our way and the way of future generations. It's that relentless pursuit of perfection. It's the randomness of divine intervention that saves runs and takes them. It's the motivation in the face of such odds to never stop running. It's the heart and resolve of every speedrunner who starts out each and every run with a hope and a prayer of going just a little bit faster. I have to give a huge thank you and shout out to my patrons who made this video possible, especially Javi G and Elias Aksanov. You guys are absolute kings. If you would like to help me make more videos like this one and get your name in the credits, please consider becoming a patron. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Malou, and I'll see you storytellers in the next video.